Hey everybody, hello, and welcome to the live video today. I can't believe it. Where does the time go? It is 15th of January, 2020. I thought I would check in today because, well, there's a number of things. I've been teaching a lot has been happening. We had a fantastic play party last night, which was super fun. Just so much fun to help people understand and create more fun, adventure, peace, pleasure, freedom, spaciousness. That happened. That was incredible, and really looking at exploring the art of ritual in creating more of the life that you want, which for me is just so much fun. So much fun. So I thought I would check in. I thought I would check in this week on the subject of ease and flow and clarity because there were a couple things that came up. There's some common questions and things that I see people dealing with, and so I thought this would be a good time to address these things and kind of let you know a little bit about how I want you to be moving ahead in this next year and decade, because the speed of things, as we've spoken about already, the pace of just life, the volume of information, the volume of stuff coming at us, the energy. I mean, there is so much going on, and everything is competing, as we've said. It competes for your attention, so it's very easy to create tension, to have tension around your attention. And that's kind of what we want to begin to focus on shifting. So how do you begin to um, think differently, see differently, and start to think about uh, ease? Ease, the way I'm using ease, I want to be clear about these things. It's, a friend of mine I was speaking about some of these things with, and my friend was like, look, you're saying the same words. Sometimes you say the same words that everybody else says, but I'm starting to understand, because she's known me a bit. She's like, I'm starting to realize, like, you don't mean anything like what the words are sounding like. So there is this kind of, what I'll call sort of pseudo ease, which is actually, you know, it is the claim, like, oh no, just, be in your ease and your flow, but you really use that to shame other people. Like, so there's all this, the challenge we have. So part of what we want to do, so I'm going to type this in here real quick in the comment phase. So part of what we want to do is like in the course of 2020, I want you to learn how to live without shame, blame, and guilt. And since these are the, I put that in all caps. That's so funny. I'm screaming, I guess. Clearly I'm screaming. Um, so what we're dealing with when we think about these things, what we want to be thinking about is like, how can you communicate an idea without blame and shame and guilt? Well, the first thing is you have to come from a place of self love, self discovery, self understanding. If you don't have that, so in other words, if you're treating yourself like crap, it's so easy to treat other people like crap. And and we always treat ourselves like way worse than we would treat other people. So you can imagine how things end up showing up. If you can imagine how things end up showing up if if you yourself are treating yourself with not kindness, right? So moving ahead, so let's talk about kind of like the view, the longer term view. And I'm going to be doing this kind of talking about these things. I'm going to be doing some teaching over the weekend, and I'll try to drop in when I can, and just kind of share some of the thoughts about kind of where I see the big picture of the next, let's say, certainly the next year and 2 years. I think these are very crucial times because, in the sense that there's so much misinformation out there. There's so many ways to get confused, to get dragged down on your path, to get stuck. This is the thing. Like I spent a lot of time on my spiritual path. I started my spiritual path at 4.5, mainly because of a ton of trauma that was in my life. And then that started me being like, hey, this doesn't make sense. I need to figure out how to make this make sense. Like, what does this mean? Like, what do I do with this? And so I was very precocious, as you can imagine, just being like, what do you mean? What do you mean life is, XYZ thing? And so as I went down the path, I really went down kind of just with the idea of wanting to get to clarity. So clarity is the number one thing. I don't really care about the story. The story is irrelevant because the one thing I've seen from traveling around the world is the story, depends where you are. Everybody has their story. Everybody has their, like, this is how it is, So I really began to see these patterns of the story. And so we use stories because we're storytelling creatures. We use stories to help us feel better, to help us understand reality. There is a level of reality which I've been starting to play with in 2020, where we step into this kind of easeful way of being. In other words, can you surf life because everything's coming so fast? So if you hold on to any piece of it, which everything, there's so many things to get, to hook onto and get you hooked into. So is there a way to, what we're focusing on is like, is there a way to move through life with a certain flow? And flow is very akin to being in like a state of awareness or a state of consciousness that feels very open, fluid, accessible, but yet with boundaries. That balance, so that you can move in this more liquidy consciousness kind of way, but yet focus that when you need to on whatever it is that you're wanting to create in your existence. So that's a fascinating thing. And I think that's where the ease part has come in, because I did a lot of pain and suffering and struggling. But when I first twigged on this, which was in '99, because there was a lot of change and things coming in, and a lot of consciousness sort of like focusing like a waterfall. And so I was getting very dragged around by that. And it wasn't until I really let go into this expansive, I would call it kind of almost a unitive consciousness, where you just expand. There's this sense of very, very profound sense of oneness, which I was living with for a long period of time. But it was missing something that I've come back to now. And that's kind of what I'm excited about sharing. That's part of what I'm teaching in the Mystery School teachings. So if you're listening to this, if you're tapping in, I've seen a few people. Nice to see everybody. Mindy, Joshua, Judy, Mia, Leslie, some friends from my, from different lifetimes along this life. It's good to see you all. So if you're tuning in, it is likely that you are already, you've been asking, you've been seeing things differently, or trying to understand things in a different way. So I thought I would share over the course of this year, really help you to step into a space that I've been living in, really, really deeply living in. Well, I started getting to live in it in '99, but really grounded in by 2006. So that's like 14 years of really, and it's been battle tested, man. I have been through a lot of things in that period of time. And I think it's one thing to be like, oh, I've got a theory about how life is, but it's another thing to have an understanding that gives you the superpower of clarity. And clarity is the superpower. Like, if there is one thing that I can promise you, is that if you have clarity about the way your life is working, the way things are closer to the truth of how things actually work, and I'm not saying truth with a capital T, but rather, um, if I have a theory about life that has like 30 steps to it, or one that achieves the same result but in like 3 steps, kind of a la Occam's razor, my experience has been, if I've got the 3 steps, or the 2 or 3, 4 steps, no more than 5 things that I understand about the way life works, because once you get beyond that, it's just, now you're into anything can happen at any given time. And that's not really helpful. So I'm not going to get exactly into that right this second, but that kind of belief, which is a misunderstanding, by the way, I get where the misunderstanding comes from. It's so easy to like hear a spiritual principle that's close, man. It could be so close. But then when it takes a right-hand turn, it takes the right-hand turn and just goes into like bizarro land. And then that bizarro land, which has happened to me, can cost you like, 5, 10 years. So when I finally came out the other side and really solidified this now in 2006, I it was like, when I say solidified, what I mean is it's stabilized. It was no longer like in and out. It just is. And once something becomes an is, and this is a secret kind of what I'm sharing with you today, once something is an is, it's no longer something you're working on. So part of what what I want to do, and what we want to do in kind of what I'm calling the mystery school. So the mystery school, the school that I've been creating and really been putting the work into for quite a while. I just didn't know what the form was, but I finally got the form down, because I realized what's missing is we need a safe space to talk about things that you can't talk about under normal circumstances. And you can't really, they're not mass teachings. It's not like, you can't really be like, oh yeah, blah blah blah. I mean, yeah, sure, whatever. But the reality is, it's these are teachings for people who are asking a different kind of question. The dominant mythologies that are out there, the dominant sort of strategies and mythologies and belief systems, have been out there for, you know, easily a couple, 2, 3 thousand years. Now they refine and the characters change and all that stuff, but fundamentally the stories are very similar. So what that ends up doing for us is we're using a story that's a couple thousand years old. And then the only thing, because of the way the stories work with shame and blame and guilt, the only thing we can come back to is that there's something wrong with us. So somebody says, well, just think good thoughts. Just, that's the secret. Well, yes. And like, I get that conceptually, but I think a lot of these things are just misunderstandings of principles. And what's happening now is, because technology is speeding up, because we can share ideas, because I can go online with you right now, which is just truly remarkable, share with people around the world. This event we had last night it was epic. I mean, I saw friends I hadn't seen in years. They were, and it was the right space and environment to practice in life the things we're talking about. So, it's one thing to say like, oh, I want more pleasure, or I want more freedom, or I want something, but it's another thing to shift into like the way of being, or the frequency, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about that, because once you start to get that piece, that comes with it a certain peace, Peace. So you kind of get the peace, but then you get the peace with that. And so as we're heading into this new decade with all kinds of stressors, a lot of people have been coming to me with some very intense stuff. So my commitment this year is to share again with the people who want to hear, right? I know I'm going to filter out a lot of people. That's fine. This is not a message for like masses of people. This is a message for someone who truly deeply in their heart is asking a deeper question about the nature of reality and existence and how to live. Because like, ultimately, at the end of the day, what I really figured out and what really clicked, what really was like grounded for me in 2006. And I went through the fire. I mean, 99 to 2006 was just like, whoa. I lost a house. I had my one of the homes I was building destroyed. I was like, went through a divorce. I mean, it was like I was going through the fire as I was kind of coming more into really getting what life was about. The level of resistance and headwinds coming at me were just massive. I mean, it was incredible. So the question is, if you've got a tool that works when everything's great, okay, whatever, that's everything. But when the going gets rough, if you have something that allows you to go to those deepest and oftentimes really dark places. I mean, I went to one of in 2005, March 2005, I went to one of the darkest, loneliest, most just like, I was like, this is the bottom. This is the bottom. And there were three people I called at that time. And because I was at the bottom, I mean, it was like that sound, like when the boat kind of was like, this thing's just, and I'm just going into the abyss, and then that thing. And there was a moment and I knew I hit the bottom. I mean, I was like, I literally can't go any lower. It is snowing in my house because my contractors had destroyed 98% of the house. So I had partial roof. I had a front door. I had a floor. I had no water, no heat, and a piece of plastic and no electricity, and a piece of plastic between me and the elements. And it was snowing in my living room. And I was like, man, and here I am having all this expansion of consciousness. That's the paradox, right? I'm in like these incredible states of just ecstatic states of consciousness, and my world is falling apart. And so I hit the bottom and I'm like, okay, well, this is the moment, right? This is the moment. This is the moment. Like, this is like, you either the stuff that you've been working on for 30 years is real, or you are just another, talking head talking about a bunch of BS. And so I sat down. Well, at first I made 3 calls, and the calls were awesome because they were all completely not helpful in different ways. And one was like, actually, it was like, oh, you're down, let me kick you. And so that was funny that's what happened. So I was like, okay, this is on me. This is on me and my consciousness, my awareness, my understandings, like what I've learned. And I had already gone through the fire, but this was like the physical expression of all the internal work I had been doing. And so in that moment, I just kind of went in and I meditated and really I really felt the bottom. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to mark this because this is it. Like, I can't, the next step here is you're dead. It was like, and I'm like, so we're here. And so I kind of, touch into that and I'm like, okay. And when you really, I call it leaning in, when you really lean into the sensation that is overwhelming, scary, terrifying sometimes. I mean, those sensations. I mean, I've had sensations where the thought of touching the sensation would make me cry. They were that overwhelming. But once you start to understand that those are actually gifts, and how you frame those gifts, what I'm saying is they're gifts because they teach you, if the tools you're developing actually have the capacity to help you through the challenges that, you know, just having a body and living as a human will bring. So I am sitting there at the bottom, right? And I'm just, okay. I just breathe in And I'm like, yeah, this is it. And I know it's it. And I specifically make a mark because I'm like, this is it. Like, it's not going to get worse. So I'm going to completely surrender. I would even say embrace would be more accurately describing it, like expanding into um, the in a way this kind of like destruction. But really, what it was is it's like this embracing of this dragon, and this dragon, which I had been trying to run from. Just I was trying to create stability, and I was trying, I was kind of running from my childhood trauma. And I thought like a house or some money or something would solve all those things. And it just went worse. It was fascinating, so fascinating. So I lean into it, hanging at the bottom, take a deep breath. And I'm just like, yeah, this is it. Okay, cool. And I remember when I finally just expanded my, um, I'll call it for lack of a better word, like my more awakened awareness or expanded awareness. Sometimes I call it like an enlightened awareness or um, just like the flow awareness. Like there's so many names for these things, but they you want to find the name that really like resonates for you. For me, it just happened to be because my quest was always like, oh, I'm on my path of enlightenment. So for me, this was like, is this a real awakening or is it whatever? And so I'm hanging out and I embrace this thing, and suddenly I realize, okay, I'm at the bottom. Take it all in. And this incredible thing happens where like all of this, what was it, like pain and suffering and sadness, despair and anger and confusion and all that stuff, just it just became, it just kind of metabolized into my awareness. And all of a sudden, the thing that I was running from became me. And from that moment of sort of expanding into the unexpandable, um, it's strange. It was like I was free, like in an integrated, like I was like, oh, okay. Okay, I thought it was about homes. I thought it was about all these things, but now I get that that's not what it's about. It's about what's going on in here and in here and in my being first. And and it was funny because the people I called were so not kind to me. And so I was like, okay, well, do I go into the not kindness, which was the tendency, right? That's what we did. We just like, oh, because that's what people say, oh, it's so stupid. You made this mistake. You did that. Like, I'm not doing that. And so I go into that. It becomes like this power, this integrated power, like a strength. And I meet myself with this ultimate kindness, like the kindness that you would want from a parent, that you would want from like something or someone that loves you completely unconditionally. And I just kind of treated myself to that. It's like, okay. So in the presence of all of this, I just start treating myself with this exquisite sweetness. And then all of that pain and suffering and confusion, all that stuff starts to become the very thing that lifts me off the bottom. It's like it starts to become like this buoyancy, like a superpower. And I remember that moment specifically, March 2005, because that moment was the moment I was like, this is it. It's like all this work I've been doing was to prepare me for this level of destruction. And either I have developed the capacity or I haven't. And it turns out I had. So then basically 2006 to now, I've been figuring out, well, how do I teach this? And, and I've had so much trauma and just horrifying situations, like things that happen in my life, people I can't forgive. I mean, I could just go on and on and on. And I was like, okay, look, everything has been about integrating. And at the end of last year, end of 99, I mean, of 1999, at the end of 19, I'm like, I knew it was time for a quantum shift. And that's where I've been now. And it's kind of like that quantum shift is how I want to share with you moving forward. So during the course of this year, I really encourage you to bring questions and kind of things about where you are in your life. I've noticed people, there are sort of two levels of what people are experiencing right now. And one of them is, they're getting sort of broken by the fracturing and the chaos and all the stuff that's going on, and we just have more access than ever. So that's either if you're getting caught in the minutia, that's going to be very difficult and painful, right? Because fracturing can only lead to more fracturing. Once you take a position on anything, you now have to defend that position. And then as soon as you take that position, you have the opposite position. So literally anything that we're like, I believe X, that can become our prison. It doesn't have to be. So what we want to do is we want to shift into a certain, I want to share with you sort of like, okay, moving ahead into this new decade where clearly things are going to be speeding up. And if we're not expanding our consciousness, we just move into more and more divisiveness. But yet we're on the precipice of something incredible. I see something incredible. I mean, technology is evolving in this incredible way. Live from the shower. That's so cute. Yes, I am in my shower. I have the best shower ever. It is rice paper shower curtains. So I actually do have an amazing shower, but that's another story for another day. So as we're moving ahead, we have an opportunity right now to kind of begin to think in terms of moving, like surfing the big waves, which is like I'm really happy to share with you, because I have been surfing. I've really been surfing. Like, once I hit bottom in 2005, that was such a key moment, because it was like, okay, well, from here it's just like building and designing who and what I want to be, which is what I've been working on. Not even working, I've been playing, been having a lot of fun, creating. I've tried on different things, man. I've tried on so many different just so many different things during this time. But it was finally right at the end, like in the last, actually while I was teaching in Hawaii, it was like sometimes you reach these moments. Well, I went into the cave. I don't know if any of you follow me on Instagram, but if you don't, that's a good place. I'll put some stuff there occasionally, but between Facebook and Instagram, whatever, good way to stay in touch. But I went into the cave. I literally went into a cave, and I did this. I walked about 1.5 miles into a lava tube in complete darkness, and just really went to that place of like I'm ready to face, if there are any other, how do I say this? It's like, go into the depths of the the darkest, deepest, most terrifying places and learn about yourself. So I've done this enough now where, I've been studying my own psyche and kind of just what these metaphors and images are. And I went into that cave, and I will tell you, I had fun. I treated it kind of like the Luke Skywalker moment. It's like, you go into the cave and you take whatever it is that that has come with you. You know, you take this with you. And so, you know, Luke being terrified, he brings the lightsaber, and of course then he's got this whole fight with himself with the lightsaber. I didn't take anything. The only thing I did at the entrance of the cave is I left my hat. I've got my, like, you know, Indiana Jones hat. I left my hat and a shirt because I'm like, well, if I don't come back, somebody should at least know where I, you know, where the end of my existence came to in the cave. You know, so I go back. I have no idea how long I meditated, but it was pitch black. If the batteries went out on my flashlight, I would not have made it back out. It was like I went as deep as I could. It was wet, dripping. I basically just, you know, took off all of my identities, surrendered it all, and I was just like, okay, I am done. And when I say I'm done with this, like, the stories and all this stuff, you know, the thou shalts that life gives you, and that everybody's like, oh, do this and do that, and you're living everybody else's life. And it was just, you know, how much of my life, first 30 years of my life, just total misery of just trying to be like the live everybody else's life. So it's so much fun to like leave that. But anyway, this ritual in Hawaii, I was like, right, so this is November, and I'm just like, okay, done, shed it all. And in that, like, stepping out of these identities, which I really want you to practice, because that's part of the fun of kind of what I'm sharing, like how to have more fun, more play, more ease, more flow, more clarity, is you got to step out of these what appear to be fixed identities, because that's what life looks like when we touch this stuff. Like, I've got this book, this is my journal. We go, oh, well, it's solid and it's real. And yes, it is. But the paradox, this is going to be way too deep to get into on this, but I will get into this. How you start to understand this stuff is everything. So in the cave, you know, very similar to the bottom of my life experience there at the bottom, you know, March 2000, just the pitch black darkness of my own. I'm just like, wow, it's not going to get any worse. Completely surrender, willing completely to let go, to die in that moment, which of course you have to be if you're going to walk 1.5 miles into a lava cave. And then just hung out there. I have no idea how long it was. I came out in the darkness. And by the time I came out of the cave, it was completely dark outside. And I was like, okay. But I felt in the middle of that, like, this rotation. And that was the moment where that's what I wanted to share with you, right? Where I was like, okay, I've got it now. What I need to do is start to, with the people that want to understand, right? I'm not on a, you know, I'm not on a mission here. I'm not trying to save the world. None of that. For the people that are interested, there are tools that I've been developing for like 30, 40 years that if I can share, I want to. And there are people who have been starting to get tremendous benefit from just kind of sharing the idea. So the first idea was yammering on way longer than I anticipated, but I'm about to jump on a podcast, so I wanted to kind of talk before the podcast, because I knew afterwards I'd be, you know, onto other things. So for 2020, here's what we're doing. If you're listening to this, if your ears are open, if you're listening a little bit differently, then you may feel, you know, a slight tingle, a slight vibration, a slight energy. That energy, whatever that is to you, that life force energy, that connection to like, oh, I am alive. You know, we can go as cosmic as you want. You know, it's all beautiful metaphor. It's all beautiful metaphor to try to explain existence. So it doesn't matter where you tap into that, it doesn't matter how you conceive of it or how you believe in it. The point being, that's like tapping into that, like, flow, that experience of flow where time disappears. You're not watching clocks. You're just in connection. You're in connection with who or whatever you're doing. There's a certain kind of aliveness, because your life isn't all scattered all over, like, oh, I gotta do all this stuff. You know, what we used to call back in the like this wave of people who were like not human beings but human doers. And like we've exponentialized that since the 90s. So it's hilarious, man. People are like, oh, I got my to-do list. You know, it's like 86 pages long and it's all the stuff they haven't done. So we don't, that's not a happy life. So how are we moving ahead now, in, you know, kind of moving into this next new decade where the waves are going to be coming stronger and harder. There's going to be bigger things, scarier things. So where are you in that cycle? Are you on the, like, are you getting crushed by that thing? Or are you up with me, kind of surfing, playing, enjoying, experiencing, exploring, being open to life, connection, see where this adventure goes? And we're moving into a place where, even though people in their psyches are feeling more condensed and afraid and, you know, all this stuff, the reality is we're moving into a phase of more and more and more abundance and freedom. Our minds are changing. Those people that are on the wave, it's like, you know, like you really start to see there are some very big, profound changes. Not all of them are, you know, devastating. Some of them are of epic proportion and super profound. And so if you begin to kind of tap into that flow, that in itself creates ease. And then as these things are coming at you, you can start to be like, oh, okay. So for example, you know, I mentioned this in the last video I recorded. A lot of people were calling me up, oh my God, you know, World War III. And I'm like, it's not a thing. So and I know that because of clarity. It's just, you know, time and clarity and just, you know, really tracking kind of the flow. Like that's not a thing. We don't live in that world. We're in a world that is bringing, more expansion, ability to think differently, to be who you want to be. And ultimately, I think that's it. Like we're on a path, and I want to help support you in being more you. And the modalities I'm using, whether, you know, we're using tantric modalities or we're using meditation or play or communication, or, you know, I'm going to this event, um with like this future self event that's coming up, which is going to be super fun. Just like, you know, the whole event is you're just living from your future self, which is a great ritual to prepare who you want to be. But there's also a way to live that right now and start to shift those things. So what I'm saying is, and then I'm going to shut up because I'm even boring myself. No. Um, uh, you know, what I'm really saying is like, look, we can start to imagine, step into, um, live from a place of more freedom and more expansion. That's just the truth. There's more of everything that there has ever been in the world before. It's just that's what's happening. There's just more. And some of that stuff is good stuff, some of it is not. But predominantly there's a lot of amazing things. I mean, the fact that I am like this thing is incredible. Like I can't even believe that I can set this rig up. I mean, you know, even 3 years ago, this was much harder to do, but now I can just, you know, roll out, talk to you about some stuff, be anywhere pretty much on the planet. And I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling this year. So, you know, a lot of, you know, some teaching and traveling. And so it'll be fun to be able to check in and share ideas with you. But the main thing, if you can do me one favor, heading into the new decade, begin to think about like, what does my life look like if I'm in ease and flow? What if it's easy? This is the point I'm making. Shh, don't tell anybody, okay? It's our secret. The reason I say this is because the whole pain and suffering and this like punishing, abusive, you know, invisible creatures that are just like super judgmental and all this stuff like that. If that was going to work for people, we've had a run of like 2,000 plus years of that with this kind of rules and laws based, you know, do this or else thou shalt. And like that's brought us here. Now it's great for setting up cultures and all that stuff, but for the individual who's trying to figure out what the hell do I do with my life? Like, how do I live when the machine, if you will, is just getting even more intense? Um, Well, that's what we're doing. And so stepping into, I just feel like this is the crossroads. Like it's arbitrary, right? I mean, it's a calendar, but we can turn it into something profound. And those of you that are on the journey with me, that maybe something tingles inside, vibrates, you're kind of like, oh, okay, that's interesting. You know, don't listen to everything I say. Some of the things you're going to be like, that's too much. Okay, is it too much? That's fine. There will be quite a few things I'm sure I'll say that'll be too much, but somewhere between too much and not enough is the sweet spot. So that's what I'm really looking for when I'm looking for ease and flow. It's just I've been through a lot. I've done a lot. I've studied a lot. I've done a lot of work, and I'm like, not everybody else has 40 years in their lives to devote to, and do the kinds of crazy things that I've done um to come to a space of freedom and spaciousness and more joyousness and happiness. And so, like, sharing that with you um is what I want to be doing. And then those of you that kind of start to vibe with that, because some people will just be like, no, 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 I need to, it's pain and suffering and, self-abuse and all that stuff. And that's cool. There will be lots of people on that path. But I left that path probably around, really, really, really completely left it. By 2006, this thing was set. And I just really, so now it's kind of expressing that with you and being more vocal, because maybe there's 10 people, 20 people, but there are more people willing to listen and willing to vibe with me on that we can start shifting things with more ease, and we can bring that to the forefront of our awareness, whatever that's around: relationship, money, health, well-being, and really start to bring that forward. And specifically, the superpower is clarity. So we're going to do quick meditation, then I got to jump on my podcast. But if you're if you want to jump in, just take a moment. And this is a technique that a friend of mine shared with me, and it's a kind of an ancient technique. This is the funny thing, like some of these things that I was studying 30, 40 years ago, like I've been able to dust them off and reinterpret them in a completely different way, because I was just angry I felt like had betrayed me. It's so funny. But now I really am like, oh, I see. I just, you know, maybe my teacher misinterpreted them, but where I understand these things now, they're all in play. And so this is a technique that has, I mean, wow, probably heard about the first time in the 1980s. And it's a technique, very simple. This is simple. Like those of you that have struggled with meditation, I get this question like, oh, I don't know how to meditate. Well, of course, because we're in the paradigm of pain, suffering, and struggle, and that egos are bad and must be overcome. And when you're in those paradigms, everything is hard. But if you just kind of say like, well, what if that's wrong? What if it's just incorrect? Just what if? It's just what if. We're playing here. We're playing. Like nothing's like, it doesn't matter. Like I'm not gonna, no, life is this way. I'm not gonna like whatever. Just try it on, right? Don't, and that's the beauty. Don't take my word for it. I'm not, it's just like, come play, try it on. If it works for you, use it. That's it. And if it doesn't, like that's the beauty. It's like we sort of can do this however we want to. I'm done doing it the old ways. This is really stable in my consciousness at this point. So I really feel like, because so many people have been struggling with this stuff, I'm like, I've got to start talking about this. So that's what the school is going to be about. That's what it is about. This is school. You're in school. That's funny. This is fun school. Which is how I like it to be. So anyway, take a moment, take a deep breath, inhale. So the breath thing is really important. We can talk about these things, but the breath is really important because that's a ritual, a symbolic ritual to your own consciousness, that you are shifting your awareness from externally based to internal. So I take a deep breath. Inhale and hold it. Exhale, give it a sound. That's for our Tantra friends. But sound is really important. Turns out sound is a beautiful thing for calming your nervous system. So we're just inhaling, exhaling, letting the breath just spill deep and full. No big deal. And then I want you to imagine yourself standing in front of the mirror that you look in every day. So what is the mirror you look in every day? Oh, the phone is ringing. So what is what's the thing you look in every day? And from that place, right, from that mirror, seeing yourself in the mirror, I want you to just imagine gifting that you in the mirror. Just complete unconditional love. Just unconditional, just unconditional love. Like, I love you, I accept you, just as you are. And just gifting that. And then in that unconditional love and in that kindness, gifting yourself ease, right? And ease and flow, these are synonymous words. It's kind of like, and so whatever that is for you, maybe it's that moment where you wake up and you just look at the sky, or you've seen a sunset, or maybe it's just a look in someone's eyes, or it's an experience you have, but it's that sense that taps you into the the wonder, the flow, and just gift you in the mirror that flow. And take another deep breath. Just inhale. Let that fill you and flow through you. Ease, clarity, flow. One more deep breath. And then exhale. And that's it. And that's how we begin to take in states of awareness or consciousness. The gifting to ourselves the thing that we want is probably the most important thing. Because if we can gift it to ourselves, there's space to have more of that in essence. But if we can't gift it to ourselves, then it's almost impossible. It doesn't matter how much somebody's like, oh, I love you, or I care about you. We just can't feel it because we're just like, oh, I don't love myself. So it's so much fun. So that's it. I've talked for way too long. I was like, oh, I'm just going to talk for 10 minutes. But, there's a lot of things to say. So, and, it's fun. So school is out. The bell has rung. We just heard it. I've got to jump on this podcast, and we'll check back in soon. Feel free to reach out. You can hit me up on the Insta if you want to, on the gram. You can Facebook. You can just messenger me here or wherever you're hearing this, wherever you hear this, maybe YouTube, whatever. Feel free to message. Just understand. Whoa, see, that's it. School is out. The bell has rung. That's our time. That's our cue. My name is Paul, and that's between y'all. So have fun. If you have questions, if you're thinking about stuff, you want to go deeper on something, feel free to shoot out. I'll just kind of take, when I get enough cool questions, I'll take some time and answer those. And but keep it simple. That's the main thing. I hope this is what I'm really saying. It's the clarity is simple. Ease, flow, clarity, simple. Not always easy, but simple, right? So but happy to, whatever you're thinking about, feel free to shoot along. Anyway, school's out. Have a beautiful evening wherever you are on planet Earth. Beautiful day, beautiful morning. This is Lawrence sending you Just wow. Deepest wishes for ease, flow, clarity, and a hell of a lot more fun in your life. Bye, y'all. Talk to you soon. Bye. Have fun. See ya.